Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we have an awesome new printer to check out. This is the Anycubic Vyper. This is a brand new printer. The Anycubic just came out. Now when I was unboxing this and getting ready to set it up, I noticed a lot of similarities to the Ender 3 version 2. So I decided to put these two printers side by side and show you guys all the differences between the Ender 3 version 2 and the new Anycubic Vyper. Now, spoiler alert, the Anycubic Vyper is basically the Ender 3 with every upgrade that you can imagine. It's got dual Z-axis drivers, it's got a better extruder system, it's got all kinds of stuff. We're going to take a closer look. I'm going to show you guys every single thing that's different between the two printers. Also, stick around until the end because I'm going to be giving you guys a sneak peek of my next build that I'm working on. It's a massive plane that you guys are going to want to see a couple clips of. Looking at these two printers side by side, you can definitely tell there's a lot of similarities. There is a little bit difference in the build volume. The Vyper is 245 by 245 by 260, and the Ender 3 is 220 by 220 by 250 on the Z-axis. Now let's get into the unboxing of the Vyper, and I'll show you guys a couple more differences. To unbox the Anycubic Vyper, it's pretty easy. The Z-axis tower comes all assembled, so it's just a matter of attaching the Z-axis tower to the base unit. So here in the top we just got our manuals and our cables, our spool holder, and then our touch screen. So we'll take this top off, and then we're going to take out the two pieces together in this foam piece because that Z-axis tower is attached to the base unit already with the cables, so you want to just be careful not just taking this part out without taking the base unit out. So I'll just be careful taking this off of the foam here. Not moving it too far away from the base unit so that cable doesn't get stretched at all, and then we'll take that base unit out, and then we'll just go ahead and set this onto the base unit. There's a little bit of a notch in the base unit where it sits into, and then we'll just put 4 screws on the bottom here. You can use the provided Allen wrenches to attach that, and then we'll go ahead and attach the screen. So there's just 3 screws there, 2 on the front and then 1 on the top here. And then the spool holder, no tools required for that. Just spin that on there and then clip it into the base. And then we'll flip it around and we'll hook up the Bowden tube to the extruder unit, and then we'll just plug in all the wires. And then we'll go ahead and cut the zip ties off. And then we'll just switch this over to 115 for the US. And check it out, it looks really good. I'm really happy with the way they designed it. It looks really nice and clean. It came out really easy, very easy to assemble. Now for the Creality Ender 3 version 2, it definitely comes in a lot more pieces than the Vyper. So all the pieces are all individual. You kind of have to set all this up. It's a lot more work to assemble it. So to put this all together, the Z-axis motor, and hook up all this extruder, get this unit all set up, and put it on these rods here, put the top part on. So it's a lot more work involved. It's still pretty easy. Has a pretty good instruction manual, but definitely that Vyper was a lot easier to set up. So we'll switch that over to 115 also, and then that one's ready to go. Okay, so the biggest difference between these two printers is the new Anycubic Vyper has self-leveling. Now, for a beginner printer, the market that these printers are for, leveling the bed can be the most challenging part to somebody just brand new getting into 3D printing. Getting that first layer print on your build plate is very difficult when you're not sure exactly how far to set the extruder from the build plate, and you're with a piece of paper and you're trying to level everything. Well, this printer has self-leveling built right into it, right off the shelf. You get self-leveling. You can get self-leveling for an Ender 3, but it's all kinds of upgrades and more cost and everything involved. So with the Ender 3, we just have our traditional adjustment knobs down here, and then for the Anycubic Vyper, we have self-leveling. Now, another really big difference between the two is if we flip these around. On the Ender 3, we only have a single Z-axis motor, and on the Vyper, we have dual Z-axis motors here. And then it has also these stabilization pieces up here for the Z-axis rods. Normally that's something that you'd want to 3D print for your Ender 3. to allow it to not have that vibration into the print, because as it gets taller it can wobble a little bit, and that can translate into your print. So it has destabilization, and it's got the dual Z-axis motors. Those are the two biggest differences between the Ender 3 and the Vyper. Those two upgrades alone that you would have to do to the Ender 3 would increase the value. Another nice thing about the Anycubic Vyper is the screen. This is touchscreen. And the Creality Ender 3 does not have touchscreen. You have to use the knob down below to cycle through the menu. So another nice upgrade for the Anycubic Vyper is this build plate. So this is normally a additional cost that you'd want to get if you want to do this type of build plate, where you put a magnetic piece on top of your build plate, and then you have this piece that just magnetizes to it, and then that way when you print your part, you just take this off, flex it, pop the part off, and throw this back on. It has a surface there that's really good for adhesion, whereas on the Ender 3 you just have a traditional glass bed, and then you do have to use like a hairspray. So I use either hairspray or a glue stick to have good bed adhesion for the Ender 3. So this is an upgrade piece that a lot of people do this upgrade with this type of build plate, and it already has it on the Vyper. So the Anycubic Vyper has a standard SD card, and the Creality Ender 3 has a micro SD card. The tool tray for the Anycubic Vyper has magnets on the back here, so when you go to close it, it has a nice easy close to it, and then inside the actual compartment it's completely open. There's just a piece of foam in there that I still have in there to keep your tools organized. And then for the Creality Ender 3, it does not have a magnet. It has like this slot on the bottom of the tray there, and it clips into this spot here, and so you have to press it a little bit more just to get it closed. To adjust the belt tension on the Vyper, there's two Allen set screws. You just grab an Allen wrench and tighten those down. There's an indication on what direction to turn them. And on the Ender 3, there's just two knobs you can tighten. On the bed, there are no leveling points for the Vyper, and then here are the leveling points on the Ender 3. You just turn these knobs. There's 4 of them. If you're having problems with that, I do a video that shows you guys how to do that. For the spool holder, I don't like either one of the spool holders. This is the one for the Vyper. It clips in easily and holds the spool just fine, but I don't like how wide it is. So you can see that's how much build area it takes up on the bench. So I'm going to go ahead and use an extra spool holder that I made and set that behind the printer, and then remove the spool holder, and that'll just make it a little narrower. I don't like the one on the Ender 3 because it's on top of the Z-axis, so I'll use an extra one for that also. The Vyper has a runout sensor, which I don't usually use. I'll just put a piece of filament in there and cut it off to register that it has filament, and the Ender 3 does not have a runout sensor. So I'll go ahead and flip these around and take a look at the back. So on the Vyper, there are the dual Z-axis motors like I mentioned before. On the Ender 3, it just has the single one on the one side, so you can see I can move this a little bit, and that makes some errors in the print when it gets up tall. The motor that drives the bed is pretty much the same on both printers. The Creality one has this cover that's over the belt system. On the wiring, it's all basically the same on both printers. Both printers are Bowden style printers, meaning that there's a motor that drives the filament that's not attached directly to the hot end. This is where the tension is set for the Vyper. And if you look up in here, there's actually 2 gears. It's a dual gear extrusion system. Makes it very accurate extrusion mesh. For the Creality, there's this knob on the top that you can remove that you can use to drive the filament when you're heating it up. And then if you look underneath there, there's a gear, and then there's a bearing on one side. And that just sandwiches the filament between the gear and the bearing, which isn't quite as accurate as the Vyper's method. Okay, so that's the differences between the two printers. Now let's go ahead and turn this printer on. I'm excited to see how this auto leveling works. Apparently you can just turn it on, press auto level, and the whole thing levels itself. So let's see how it works. So with the printer on, we'll go to the repair tab, hit level, hit auto level, and then we'll just go ahead and press OK. Now let's go ahead and fast forward the video. This whole process took 5 minutes from when I pushed the level button. It just goes through and checks 16 different locations and it levels it perfectly. I mean, I didn't have to do any kind of offset or anything. There's a little note in the manual that if you need to, you can set a little bit of offset, but in most cases it's not required. For me, it was not required at all. I just did this whole process, put my part on the printer and hit print, and I didn't have any issues. It worked out perfectly. Now I'll go ahead and insert our SD card and we'll hit print, and I'll print out the part that I want to print out. And then look at that, the bed is perfect, no leveling. Here on this menu, if you just go to settings, there's a Z offset. You can just go ahead and click that if you do need to adjust the distance from the extruder to the build plate. And there's a light on this printer, you can go ahead and turn that off or turn it on. And then the Creality will just hit print on that, and we'll let these two printers go to work. Both of the printers print out at the same time. I had them both set at the same speed. Okay, so after printing both these parts out, the print quality came out really good for both printers. The Vyper, I'd say the best thing was taking the part off the build plate, just being able to flex that plate, popping it right off. That was super easy. Also, the auto leveling system on the Vyper was amazing. Being able to just push one button, 5 minutes later the whole thing's leveled and you're ready to print. That was amazing. I mean, for myself, when I was a brand new printer, that was the hardest thing for me, is learning how to level the bed and getting that perfect first layer down. And this did it no problem, first try. Didn't have to do anything. The Ender 3, still have to use the leveling and level it yourself with a piece of paper. If you guys like doing upgrades and you guys want to, modify your printer like crazy, the Ender 3 is a great printer to start out with. You can have all kinds of upgrades. There's not another printer on the market that you can get more upgrades for and more help on forums and things than Ender 3. I mean, it's just the most commonly sold printer on the market. So I'd go with that if you guys like to upgrade printers and things. But for myself, my hobby is building and flying RC airplanes. So I like to be able to just take a printer, take it out of the box, set it up, and put a bunch of parts on there and print out airplanes and take them out to the airfield and go fly them. So for me, I like the Vyper just because it's more ready to use. It's got all kinds of upgrades that will benefit me more. The Ender 3, I still use it a lot on a daily basis to print out basic parts. I do want to show you guys what this part was for. This is for one of my next builds, so make sure to check out my channel and hit subscribe so you guys can notify when I upgrade new videos. But this is actually a tail section to a A321 airliner. So this is the tail section that I'm working on. I still have a bunch more printing to do, so I'll be, in one of my next build videos, I'll be showing you guys how to build this whole airliner that I'm going to do. So make sure to check out my channel, and thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we'll see you guys in the next build.